On this week's Waypoint, a look forward at patch 4.17, Cassie 2.0 isn't doing so hot, visual updates for everyone, and a big problem with the format of the World Championships. What's up guys, I'm Kat Andresco and welcome to Waypoint. Riot have given us a glimpse into patch 4.17 that looks like it's going to have a ton of champion changes. As always, nothing is set in stone until it hits live servers, and even then, it's a very squishy stone. If everything goes to plan, Soraka and Victor will finally be getting their long-awaited reworks. Soraka's always been a champion with what most people would consider kind of a boring playstyle, but her new kit sounds like a ton of fun. Victor, on the other hand, has always had a pretty fun kit, but he's never been considered a strong pick, so hopefully he'll get some play. Other than the reworks, the main aim of 4.17 is to take a look at some commonly banned champions and also address champions that don't have much counterplay. Between 4.17 and 4.18, we can expect small changes for Akali, Talon, Yasuo, and Fiora, with a focus on adding some more counterplay to their abilities. For Fiora, of all champions, I'm really hoping there are some buffs thrown in with what sounds like a nerf. Giving her opponents even more of an opportunity to walk all over her doesn't sound like a great way of making her viable, does it? Nidalee has swapped back and forth between mid and top throughout the seasons, and at the moment, she's dominating in the top lane. She was arguably the least fun champion in the game to play against when she was tossing death spears from the mid lane. Unfortunately, her recent-ish rework hasn't made her any less of a problem. She's just such a bully in the top lane. There are very few champions who can lane well against her. She can poke, she can farm, she can split push, she can sustain. She's really everything you want in a top laner right now. Ironically, Riot are now looking at nerfing some of her high AD auto-attack focus strengths while giving her some AP burst power back. Hopefully those buffs won't restore her to the death spear throwing queen of the mid lane, but at this point I think it's fair to say that Nidalee's a tricky champion to balance. Speaking of problematic champions, LeBlanc is a prime example. For a long time she just crushed the mid lane, but since Riot took away the silence on her Q, she's hardly been played. As predicted, without her silence, she's just so much more vulnerable when she goes all in, and an assassin who can't go all in isn't really a good combo. Riot are looking to buff her by adding more deception and cleverness, as opposed to more damage. But what does that mean? No idea. Good luck, Balance Team! Tristana is one of the strongest, if not the strongest AD carry in the game right now. Come late game, she's an absolute monster of a hyper carry, outputting huge damage with a ridiculously long attack range. Despite her late game strength, her early and mid game isn't that good at the moment, which is what's held her back in the past. That's the area Riot are looking to address. Hyper carries are fine, but there has to be a window in the game where they can be shut down and held back. Continuing with the theme of improving the counterplay against strong champions, Kha'Zix is also being looked at. Kha'Zix players have started to prioritize W again, poking, slowing, and gaining vision instead of going all in. It's even better when you add in the AoE factor, and all of a sudden, you've got some serious harass coming out of a melee champion. Riot aren't 100% on this yet, but if they do hit his W and find he needs a little love on the assassination front, they'll give it to him. Did you guys notice a certain snake lady suspiciously absent from that forecast? Yeah, us too. There was a lot of hype surrounding the Casseiopea gameplay changes in the last patch. Cassie has always been a cool, fun champion who could output a ludicrous amount of single target damage for a mage, even if she wasn't played too much. Now though? Well, Riot Stashu collected the feedback pretty nicely into 4 key points. 1. Cassie is the weakest champion in the game. 2. No, seriously, she's really bad. 3. Despite not seeming like it on paper, her playstyle has significantly changed. And 4. Readability or clarity, she could use a few quality of life changes to make her more user-friendly. So despite not being featured in the patch forecast, Riot definitely sees and agrees that Cassie is in a pretty rough state right now. The damage ratios on her Q and W are low, and her amazing passive isn't so amazing if it takes so long to stack. She also has significant mana problems now. She's lost her old boring but manly friendly passive. On top of that, a bug with her primary damage source E is preventing her from spamming it as much as she should be able to. That said, there is always an adjustment period with new champions, and Riot do expect her win rate to improve. Still, changes and fixes are definitely coming, and hopefully she'll end up in a good place before too long. The good news is that most of her current problems seem like number tweaks that can be addressed relatively easily. Her passive in particular is a great balancing tuner. Riot are also addressing one of my biggest concerns with the Summoner's Rift map update. Don't get me wrong, the map itself is beautiful and the new watercolor art style is gorgeous, but believe it or not, League of Legends came out a long time ago, 2009. Some of our champions are old and they look old. They were also created to mesh with an art style that's now changing dramatically. Ever since we first got a look at the new map, I was worried that the older champions would stand out horribly and look ugly by comparison. Well, it seems like that was a valid concern because Riot are on the case, big time. They're taking just about every champion released before 2013 and giving them a makeover. That's right, textures, colors, a few tweaks here and there. Not a full visual rework, but just enough to bring the older champions in line with the new art style. We have two examples so far, LeBlanc and Corki. Old on the left, new on the right. It's subtle, but it makes a big difference. I think it'll be more noticeable once everything's updated and on live servers, and I can't wait. The World Championships are kicking off this week with China's Edward Gaming versus Korea's Samsung White. Although the format is looking better than ever, it's not quite perfect, and a recent interview with Edward Gaming's coach brought a serious problem to light. I'm gonna start by saying that whatever the coach said in this case is beside the point. Translations are hard and there doesn't seem to be a consensus, so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. That said, there was some confusion over whether or not his team would try their hardest to beat Samsung White. The two teams are the clear favorites in the group and both are expected to easily move on to the knockout stages. The only thing that matters is who comes first and who comes second because it determines who the teams will play in the next round. That's fine, but it becomes a problem when you realize that who the teams play is already predetermined. The winner of Group A will face the runner-up of Group B, and the runner-up of Group A will face the winner of Group B. So in theory, a team could choose to throw a match to face a team they consider weaker in the next round. It isn't too late for Riot to make a change here, so let's hope they're watching. Okay guys, so I want to take a quick second to thank this week's sponsor, World of Tanks. World of Tanks is a team-based, massively multiplayer online action game dedicated to armored warfare. New players jump into combat and get going in less than a minute, fighting with players from all over the world in fast-paced epic battles. Best of all, it's free to play with no barrier to entry. There's absolutely no risk in trying World of Tanks, so head on over to gboffer.com/tanks and check it out today. Following that link and checking out the game is a great way to support us and help us continue to make shows like Waypoint. Once again, to check out World of Tanks and support this content, head on over to gboffer.com/tanks. That does it for this week's episode of Waypoint. For more video game news and content, head on over to gamebreaker.tv. And be sure to check back every week for the latest League of Legends news. Make sure to also subscribe to our YouTube channel, LolNation TV. I'm Kat Andresko, and you can follow me on Twitter @KatAndresko. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys at the next Waypoint.
Gamebreaker TV.